Welcome to 300 Thoughts. So I was driving to a friend's house today, trying to think of what to talk about, and I had some ideas in my head, and then for some reason I was just remembering my old pastor from the church I grew up in. Now, in a previous episode I've said that I'm not religious, which is true, but I am spiritual, and there is a big distinction between the two, in that I don't follow any kind of organization. That's where I feel the issues start to creep in, is when you start, but that's actually not what today's episode is. Today's a story time, and I want to talk about growing up as a Lutheran, which is kind of, I describe it as Catholic light, even though I don't really know what Catholic is because I've never been Catholic. My mother was, I think, Protestant. My dad was Lutheran because Scandinavians, Lutheran, they go together. And yes, I keep doing this sign of the cross. Anyway, so my parents, my dad was actually born in, or he was born in Brooklyn. He lived in Hightstown. So my mom grew up in Asbury Park, and then at some point she moved to East Windsor, Hightstown area. That's where they met. They got the house into the Brook Tree area. And I'm not sure exactly what chicken and egg came first. I know they decided to go with the Lutheran religion for raising us all. And I don't know, it's right exactly, it's the one building over from the firehouse, which is where my dad was a volunteer. So I'm not sure if he was a volunteer at the firehouse and they chose the Lutheran church, or because the firehouse was next to the Lutheran church, that's when he started volunteering. And the firehouse was like a community center for the neighborhood, because the women's auxiliary, anyway, loss of my parental life was tied up in the area. So the pastor back then was Pastor Egan. I just looked it up, and after 40 some years, he's still the pastor of that church. So he's still going strong, which is really impressive. And I was thinking, I think probably what brought this whole thought train to motion is every week he's got to come up with a sermon. And I know these are not sermons, but he's got to come up with a 5 or 10 minutes long sermon. And I'm doing like these videos every day, and I don't have an actual point to them. They're just ramblings. Maybe if they did have a point, they'd be a lot more exciting to people. But it also makes you think of the nature of sermons, because in theory this is a sermon without a parable or point. It's not really a sermon if it doesn't have a parable or point. But for the past 40 years he's been doing this, which is pretty impressive. But he doesn't do it every day. He's only done it like once a week. So less so impressive. No, it's still pretty impressive. But of all sermons, I only remember one, and it had to do with he was talking about a football game, because that's what he used to do. He's trying to figure out like real life events, and he ties them into parables. It had to do with a football game in which someone broke their leg on national TV, and I never saw this football game. It was a Super Bowl, and there was some parable to it, which I don't actually remember the parable. So I don't know if that method of talking about real life stuff, then tying it into parables, is a good method to go if you can't remember the parables but you remember the real life stuff. But again, these are just stories that I'm telling that don't have any meaning, but maybe some of them do. Well, it was just a weird thought that came in my head, which hopefully I'll have a better story next time. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Have a good day.